2008. What a time to be alive. I don't know if it was just because I was a kid, but life seemed a lot simpler back then. I mean, my days revolved around playing one of these games, or watching one of these movies, or watching one of my older family members peruse on MySpace. But with the good times, there was also the bad. We had the housing crash, along with many people losing their jobs, and a plethora of other issues going on in the world. But we all know what really carried us through 2008. It was the NBA draft. Obviously, I'm joking. Just like life in 2008, the draft had its highs and its lows. And while some players panned out, many didn't, which is why we are here to figure out what actually happened to everyone. From generational talent that took over the league, all the way to supposedly generational players that made little to no impact on, well, anyone. This is what actually happened to everyone in the 2008 NBA draft.
The San Antonio Spurs select Goran Dragic.
Goran Dragic was born to hoop. At the age of 18, he was already playing professional basketball in his native Slovenia, where he won the Slovenia League's Rookie of the Year. And by the time the 08 draft rolled around, the 6'4" point guard was a Slovenia League All-Star and champion. But because he hadn't quite exploded onto the big European stages, he slipped in the draft, taken by the Spurs, who had just taken another point guard who we'll talk about later. Dragic was traded to the Suns on draft day. Phoenix really liked the young dynamic guard and thought of him as their point guard of the future, just after Nash decided to hang it up. And it worked out that way. Well, sort of. Dragic began his NBA saga with the Suns, learning the ropes under Steve Nash. But his journey really took an interesting turn when he headed to the Rockets. In Houston, he played well, showing potential and relief for Kyle Lowry. But that was just a preview of what was to come. Enter the Dragon. Dragic made a return to Phoenix, and this time, Nash wasn't there. Dragic wasn't just a supporting character, he took center stage, leading the Suns with a style that was all his own. It was here that Dragic truly started to shine. I mean, he was a big, quick guard who was extremely intelligent and able to manipulate defenses, and was crafty finishing around the rim. Oh, and he could shoot the three. He finally put it all together in the 2013 through 2014 season, averaging 20 points and 6 dimes. This performance didn't just turn heads, it earned him the NBA's Most Improved Player of the award and the All-NBA Third Team honor. Dragic was no longer just another player, he was low-key becoming a star. Then came the Miami chapter. In the Heat jersey, Dragic's career soared to new heights. He was the team's driving force and a leader on and off the court. He became an all-star for the first time and helped Miami to the finals in 2020. After Miami, he had brief stints with the Raptors, Nets, and Bucks added to his journey, though these were quieter episodes. And recently, Dragic closed the curtain on his NBA career, announcing his retirement from basketball.
The Sacramento Kings select Patrick Ewing Jr.
Being the son of a legend is tough for anyone. You get all these crazy expectations put onto you from your parent, even if you don't necessarily have the talent to succeed. And even though he was talented, that's something Patrick Ewing Jr. found out the hard way. During his senior year at Georgetown, Pat won Big East Sixth Man of the Year, averaging 6 points, 4 boards, and 2 assists a game. Even with the lackluster numbers, Pat was a great athlete who showed a lot of promise as a help side defender. But even then, he wasn't on a lot of draft boards. So when the Kings drafted him at 43, people were kinda looking at them sideways. Before the season, he was traded to the Rockets, who then flipped him to his father's old team, the New York Knicks. But he never played a regular season game for the team. He spent 3 years in the G League and became a G League All-Star in 2011, before getting his one and only shot in the NBA in New Orleans. He played in 7 games and managed to register 3 points, 2 boards, and 2 assists in about 19 minutes of play. And after that, he played in Germany, Spain, Greece, and Qatar before walking away in 2015. But we'll always remember Pat for spamming the behind-the-back dunks on hoop mixtapes.
The Milwaukee Bucks select Lukumba Amute.
Some players are born to be stars. Lukumba Amute was not one of those guys. This dude was a role player, but he was really good at it. A part of some stacked UCLA teams, Mba Amute was criticized in a scouting report for being too much of a role player. Now, granted, he wasn't pulling up from half court or had some crazy dribbling package, but he moved well off the ball, and at 6'8" with ridiculously long arms, he gave dudes fits on defense. And he did all the little things that don't necessarily show up in the stat sheet. And it's those traits that led him to having a pretty successful 12-year career. Drafted by the Bucks, he was moved into the starting lineup only 9 games into the season because of his reputation as a lockdown defender. And that's a reputation he kept with him throughout his years in Milwaukee, Sacramento, Minnesota, Philadelphia, and LA. But maybe his biggest contribution to basketball was something that he did in 2011. He invited a then 17-year-old Joel Embiid to one of his basketball camps in his native Cameroon. At the time, Embiid had only been hooping for 3 months, and he was supposed to go play volleyball in Europe. But Luke put the ball in his hand, and the rest, well, it's history. And that's not the only player Luke discovered. He also found Pascal Siakam. Now, Mba Amute is a player agent at CAA, where he focuses on finding more talent in Africa, something that he's less of a role player at and more of a star at doing.
The Los Angeles Clippers select DeAndre Jordan.
At pick number 35, the Clippers landed DeAndre Jordan, a super athletic big man that would soon prove to be well worth the pick. With Texas A&M, DJ showed a lot of promise, but he'd only played about 20 minutes a game. And even though he had a lot of talent, he was plagued by bad footwork and poor fundamentals. I'm talking big bust potential. So falling to the second round wasn't really a shock. And in his early years with the Clippers, Jordan was a raw prospect. But as the Lob City era took off, he emerged as a defensive titan and the league's most dangerous lob threat. I mean, just look at these.
Ball. The lob. For a moment. Lob underneath.
Teaming up with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, he turned the Clippers games into must-see events, dominating the paint and the highlight reels. I mean, who could forget when he caught a body against the Pistons?
Chris Paul. The lob. Let's get him! Oh, what a fun!
Yeah, R.I.P. Brandon Knight. But Jordan wasn't just a crowd pleaser with his dunks. He was a defensive force to be reckoned with, leading the league in rebounding multiple times. He became the Clippers' defensive anchor, earning All-NBA and All-Defensive Team honors. After his memorable stint with the Clippers, Jordan's NBA story took him to Dallas, New York, Brooklyn, LA, and Philly. Although he wasn't the athlete he was before, he became a veteran big and a great locker room presence. And for that reason, DJ has managed to stick around in a league that's much different from when he entered. But the pinnacle of his recent journey was joining the Denver Nuggets. Here, Jordan achieved what every player dreams of, an NBA championship. Winning a title with the Nuggets last season, DJ added the ultimate accolade to his already impressive resume. But I may be wrong about DeAndre not being the same player as back then. You see, on November 27, 2023, he and Reggie Jackson went off for a combined 56 points in a game that made DeAndre look like prime DeAndre from the Lob City era.
To bring some energy off the bench with Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard has chosen to pick up Jackson.
The Minnesota Timberwolves select Mario Chalmers.
You may remember Mario Chalmers for two things. One, getting yelled at by LeBron all the time, or two, being the definition of clutch. At Kansas, he led the Jayhawks to a national title past Derrick Rose in Memphis, while hitting one of the biggest shots in NCAA tournament history.
Lost the handle. Chalmers for the tie. Got it!
With the Heat, he was overshadowed by the Big Three, but when it mattered the most, Rio had ice in his veins. On a team with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, Chalmers still had finals games where he led the Heat to victories. And D-Wade gave us this viral moment.
5, Miami leading 3-1. They can clinch the franchise.
After Miami, he played a couple years in Memphis, but after rupturing his Achilles, he was done in the league. He played in a few different leagues, including the Big Three and the G League, and was last seen playing in the Philippines in 2023. Rio's case is interesting because he spent his formative years playing with ball-dominant stars. Ironically, even at Kansas, the knock on Chalmers was that he needed to show off more point guard skills. That's what made him fall in the draft to Miami. But it was his defense and his ability to play off the ball that made him such a good fit with the Heat. It still would have been interesting to see what he could have been if he really got a chance to run the show.
The Minnesota Timberwolves select Nikola Pekovic.
Nikola Pekovic may not be the most talked about name, but in Minnesota, he was a crucial piece of the puzzle. Before the NBA, Pekovic was hooping in Greece for Panathinaikos, helping them win 2 Greek titles, the 09 Greek Cup and the EuroLeague title in the 08-09 season. Pekovic was considered by many to be a top 10 pick heading into the 2008 draft, but his contract situation in Europe caused him to fall to Minnesota at 31. He didn't join the team until 2010, but when he did, Pekovic quickly found his groove alongside Kevin Love, forming a crazy frontcourt duo. Pekovic with his powerful post moves, in love with his finesse and outside shooting. These two were seen as the future of the Timberwolves, a dynamic duo that could change the direction of the franchise. However, Pekovic's promising career hit a roadblock due to injuries. His physical style, which made him such an effective player, very much contributed to his struggles with durability. Chronic ankle issues proved to be his Achilles heel, cutting short of what many hoped to be a long and impactful career in the NBA. But Pekovic never fully stepped away from the game. Nowadays, Pekovic is back in his native country, where he's the president of the Basketball Federation of Montenegro. And I'd say those were the most important players of the second round. Now, on to the first round.
The Boston Celtics select J.R. Giddens from the University of New Mexico.
J.R. Giddens' college career is more eventful than his NBA one. Following a solid 2 years at Kansas, Giddens was stabbed after getting into a fight outside a bar near campus. Yeah, dude got shanked and he got charged with battery for his role in the fight. After that, he transferred to New Mexico. And as a junior, he was suspended for disciplinary reasons and missed a team trip because of his academics. Then, Steve Alford got hired. And if you know anything about Alford, you know he don't play. Giddens turned it around and became a standout performer for the Lobos, earning the Mountain West Player of the Year award. A 6'5" crazy athlete with long arms and an NBA body, Giddens had all the makings of a quality wing defender, and the Celtics thought they were getting a guy who could be like Tony Allen. But Giddens never cracked the rotation and ultimately only played in 38 games in his 3-year NBA career. He hooped in leagues all over the world after that from 2011 to 2019, last playing in the Dominican Republic. After hanging up the jersey, Giddens picked up a clipboard and was hired as the head coach for the women's basketball team at Northern New Mexico College in 2020. But in March 2023, he was let go by the school. Giddens is on the record saying that being drafted by the Celtics stunted his growth. As a young guy, he never really got a chance to play on the Big Three Celtics, a team competing for a title. Maybe his career is different if he goes to a team that allows him to make mistakes and grow as a player.
The Detroit Pistons select DJ White from Indiana University.
At Indiana, DJ White was an undersized forward who was a good post scorer and solid shot blocker. And with the 29th pick, the Pistons drafted White and traded him to the Seattle Supersonics, who became the Oklahoma City Thunder that offseason, a young team looking for building blocks for the future. In OKC, it's like DJ White walked onto the set of a basketball blockbuster. The cast: Kevin Durant, Jeff Green, Russell Westbrook, and Serge Ibaka, the man that would ultimately be the power forward of the future for the Thunder. White tried to get a spotlight, but these guys were hogging all the scenes. For White, finding minutes was going to be a little tough, and a surgery on a benign growth on his jaw forced him to miss most of his rookie season. White's journey takes him from OKC to Charlotte, where he played on one of the worst teams in NBA history. Yeah, the Bobcats went 7 for 59 in that lockout year. He had a guest appearance in Boston and another short stint in Charlotte, but the main stage eluded him. Then he starts globetrotting. DJ goes international, balling up in Turkey all the way to China. It was like DJ Zone around the world in 80 games, showcasing the skills that made him a first rounder until he finally announced his retirement in 2022. Honestly, I think DJ White just landed in a bad situation. He was drafted to a team that had a mega talented young group of players, and because of a slow start to his career and the surgery, he never got an opportunity to carve out a role in the league. But what if DJ White landed on a less talented team? Would he have been the main character in his NBA story?
The Memphis Grizzlies select Dante Green from Syracuse University.
Initially picked by Memphis, he got traded to Houston and then Sacramento, all before he made his NBA regular season debut. On paper, Green had it all. He was 6'11", 225 pounds, an incredible athlete with guard skills and shot-making ability that extended to the three-point line. In fact, at Syracuse, Green set the freshman record for three-pointers in a season. Think of him like a Rashard Lewis type. You have to remember that at this time, the entire league was looking for the next Kevin Durant, and Green kind of fit the description. A tall kid from the DMV with the ability to score from all over the court. That sounds like KD. And in the Summer League, Dante showed a glimpse of why the KD comparison made sense. Showing up the bag, he had fans sitting on the edge of their seats, anticipating a breakout rookie season. Fast forward to the regular season, and Green's NBA story becomes a mix of sporadic standout performances and hard-to-watch stretches of basketball. In Sacramento, his role was hard to pin down. Sure, there were glimpses of that Summer League star, but consistent screen time in the game wasn't coming through. When the NBA chapter wound down, Green didn't hang up his sneakers. Instead, he went global, playing anywhere from Puerto Rico to Lebanon. Most recently, he's been balling in the Big Three League. Dante Green might be a case of a player who could have been perfect in today's NBA. A long, athletic wing who had some potential to guard multiple positions. But maybe he could have benefited from some more time in school, working on his ball handling and decision-making on the offensive end. Defensively, playing zone at Syracuse didn't do him any favors. He often looked lost and seemed lazy on that side of the court. Also, in this league, situation matters, and the Kings were dysfunctional, and sometimes it's just tough to overcome all of that.
The New Orleans Hornets select Darrell Arthur from the University of Kansas.
Darrell Arthur is another player who had a wild draft night. He was taken by the Hornets, then traded to the Blazers. Portland moved him to Houston, and then the Rockets sent him to Memphis. And in Memphis, Arthur found a team that was carving out its identity. Gritty, tough, and unrelenting. Just like him. Known for his defensive prowess and a solid mid-range game, Arthur became a nice part of the grit and grind Grizzlies, who's the kind of player that fans appreciated. While he might not have been grabbing headlines, his role was really clear. Bring energy, defense, and some timely scoring off the bench. Arthur's ability to play pick and pop was essential for Memphis when they beat the Spurs in the 2011 playoffs. And the Grizzlies definitely missed him when he tore his Achilles the next season. After 5 years in Memphis, Arthur was traded to the Nuggets and continued his career as a solid role player and vet. In Denver, he continued to be a steady presence, contributing both on and off the court. He last played in the league in 2018. But last season, he returned to Denver, this time as part of their front office, helping the Nuggets win a title.
The San Antonio Spurs select George Hill from IUPUI.
For more than a decade, George Hill was a reliable point guard. Under the mentorship of Greg Popovich, Hill blossomed in San Antonio, gaining a reputation as a reliable and versatile guard who could shoot the three and lock you up on defense. And Pop loved George Hill. He molded him into a key player for the Spurs. So it was kinda wild when he shipped Hill to Indiana for the pick that would become Kawhi. With the Pacers though, Hill stepped into a whole new role. In Indiana, he was more than a contributor. He was a leader. And as the starting point guard, Hill brought a steady hand and good defense. A perfect complement to Paul George, Danny Granger, David West, and Roy Hibbert. Yeah, go ask the Heatles how tough those Pacers teams were.
This crowd is stunned as Indiana defeats Miami 97-93.
Hill made a few more stops in his NBA career, but maybe none were more profound than the leadership he showed in Milwaukee. Remember the 2020 bubble? Hill was the reason for the players' Wildcat strike. While he refused to take the floor in Game 5 against the Orlando Magic following the police shooting of Jacob Blake. We've last seen Hill playing for the Pacers, but nowadays he's a free agent, and I wouldn't be that surprised if he ends up retiring soon.
The Houston Rockets select Nicolas Batum from Lisieux, France.
Nicolas Batum's game is perfect for this era of the NBA. This French forward entered the league with a reputation of versatility, and he's more than lived up to it. In Portland, Batum quickly became a key player, known for doing a bit of everything, scoring, defending, and assisting. He was the team's Swiss Army knife, a critical piece in the Blazers' plans. Then with the Charlotte Hornets, Batum continued to showcase his all-around skills, evolving into a veteran leader who can influence the game in multiple ways. After Charlotte, Batum spent 3 seasons with the Clippers, playing next to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and his role was largely the same: play good defense and space the floor. And he did that, even if some fans didn't necessarily appreciate that.
Floor seats, crypto, I got my tool in. Fourth quarter yelling, why the fuck Batum in? She like, if you really from the clan, pull out some blues then.
Okay. Fast forward to today, and Batum is bringing his veteran savvy and 3-and-D skills to the Philadelphia 76ers. Playing alongside stars like Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, Batum's role is pivotal. Even at 35, he's proving that age is just a number, adding depth to a Sixers squad that is hoping to compete for a chip. But maybe they should just focus on getting out of the second round first.
The Seattle Supersonics select Serge Ibaka from Brazzaville of the Republic of Congo.
Known for his defensive prowess and athleticism, Serge Ibaka quickly made a name for himself in the league. He was a cornerstone of the young Thunder team that would take the league by storm. In OKC, Ibaka was a defensive fortress. His presence in the paint was game-changing. We're talking about a dude who led the league in blocks not once, but twice. That name, Ibaka, yeah, that was well-earned. But it wasn't just about blocks. Ibaka was an anchor, earning himself 3 all-defensive first-team selections. In his later years, Ibaka expanded his range from mid-range to the three-point line and became a stretch four. His defense and jumper was key for the Raptors, helping them clinch the 2019 NBA title. Today, Ibaka is showcasing his skills in the EuroLeague, proving that his talent knows no borders. But it's not just his basketball skills that make headlines. Off the court, Ibaka is a culinary enthusiast with a YouTube hit series, How Hungry Are You?, known for his unique dishes and entertaining interviews. He's served up everything from beef private parts to Kawhi Leonard to getting destroyed by Giannis Antetokounmpo.
You're not the chef, not the artist. You're a role player and rebounder. A screen setter. That's what you are. Bye.
The Utah Jazz select Kosta Koufos from Ohio State University.
At Ohio State, Kosta Koufos was your prototypical big man. 7 feet tall, 250 pounds, with a nice finesse post game, who could shoot the mid-range jumper. Historically, that was the making of a solid starting center. The problem is, that prototype was about to change. Koufos' early days in Utah were about growth and finding his place in a league full of unicorns. His old-school game and subpar athleticism wouldn't adapt well to a changing NBA, so he focused on what he could do: rebound and play solid defense. Even he got caught on the occasional poster.
High pick and roll, Giannis on the loose!
Koufos' NBA script took him from Utah to Minnesota to Denver, Memphis, and Sacramento. In each stop, he carved out a role as a dependable big man off the bench. His best stint was with the Nuggets, where he started 81 games for a Denver team that won 57 games. In 2019, Koufos took his talents overseas, continuing his basketball journey in Europe from Russia to Greece. And after a brief stop in the G League, Koufos last played in London. He was cut in April 2023, but that might have been a blessing as he starts a new journey after recently welcoming his second child to the world.
The Orlando Magic select Courtney Lee from Western Kentucky University.
Think of what Josh Hart is now. That's what Courtney Lee was early in his career. A 4-year player at Western Kentucky, Lee was NBA ready and poised to make a splash from Jump Street. As a rookie, he was the starting two and played a key role in Orlando's run to the NBA Finals in 2009. Showcasing his maturity and defensive tenacity, even if sometimes the moment was a little too big.
Obscures you. A lob to the basket for Lee, who caught it, laid it up, no good! And we'll go.
Guarding Kobe ain't easy, and Lee found out the hard way.
Bryant gets inside, tough shot.
Courtney Lee's NBA journey took him on tour across the league, from New Jersey to Houston, Boston, Memphis, Charlotte, New York, and Dallas. Throughout his career, Lee was consistently reliable. He earned a reputation as a solid contributor on both ends of the floor, and ultimately had a 12-year career as a valuable 3-and-D wing.
The New Jersey Nets select Ryan Anderson from the University of California.
Ryan Anderson was so much more than your normal power forward. He was a sniper, and if you played 2K, you definitely knew. In his first 2 seasons at Cal, Anderson led the Bears in scoring both years. He earned first-team All-Pac-10 honors in year 2, putting up 21 points and nearly 10 rebounds per game, and came into the draft with a reputation for being a skilled scorer with range on his jumper. Starting off with the Nets and then making some noise with the Orlando Magic, Anderson turned heads with his ability to light it up from deep. In the 2011-2012 season, he was dropping an impressive 16 points and grabbing nearly 8 boards, all while nailing threes at a 39% clip. That performance snagged him the Most Improved Player of the Year award. Then, with the Pelicans, Anderson kicked it up a notch. We're talking about a stretch 4 who changed how defenses played. Mike D'Antoni saw it too, and Anderson became a big part of the historic offense D'Antoni built around James Harden. But you live by the 3, and you die by the 3. And when the shot wasn't falling, Anderson was unplayable. In a league with increasingly more space, he couldn't guard anybody. He played sparingly for a few more seasons before hanging it up in 2020.
The Charlotte Bobcats select Alexis Ajansa from Saint Etienne, France.
Alexis Ajansa's NBA journey was really the tale of 2 careers. When he got drafted, the Bobcats saw a 7'2" athletic center who could run the floor and had a feathery shooting touch. Loads of potential, right? Except what they got was a skinny kid who lacked the strength and basketball IQ to play the right way. And maybe Charlotte wasn't the best team for a rookie that needed a lot of development. In his first 3 seasons, Ajansa spent more time in the G League than he did in the NBA, and he found himself out of the league in 2011. So he went back to France and put in that work and even helped France win gold at the 2013 Eurobasket. 2 years later, the Pelicans came calling, and Ajansa went from bust to solid backup, spending the next 4 seasons in New Orleans putting up decent numbers coming off the bench. Nowadays, Alexis is an assistant coach in the G League with the Capital City Go-Go, but his story is still interesting. He had a nice career as a backup, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what could he have been if he had been encouraged to shoot the 3-ball more? I guess we'll never know.
The Cleveland Cavaliers select J.J. Hickson from North Carolina State University.
Talk about an enigma. At one point, J.J. Hickson looked like he could have been a star. At NC State, Hickson was a strong, mobile big with a ridiculously long wingspan for his size. He used his supreme athleticism to get to the bucket and run the floor with ease. So Cleveland saw Hickson as a nice young forward that could run the floor with LeBron. And even though he started his career with LeBron on the roster, Hickson would really burst onto the scene in his 3rd season after King James took his talents to South Beach. After a forgettable stop in Sacramento, Hickson had a career year for the Blazers in the 2012 through 2013 season, putting up 13 points and 10 rebounds in less than 30 minutes of play. The crazy thing is that he didn't really build on that momentum. Even when he made the move to Denver, he was still the same player, an athletic, undersized big who could grab boards with the best of them. And the worst thing that can happen to a player like that is an injury. After tearing his ACL in 2014, the athleticism waned and so did his playing time. By 2016, he was done in the league. Since then, he's made appearances in China, Lebanon, and Puerto Rico. But what really happened to J.J. Hickson? If we're keeping it a buck, his style of play just died. The traditional power forward went away. Nowadays, you have to stretch the floor to play the 4. And JJ didn't do that. Even his pre-draft scouting report said he wouldn't be a good shooter in his weakness section. And he wasn't a good enough rim protector to play the 5. I mean, just like players like Chuck Hayes and Kenneth Faried, Hickson just wasn't meant for this pace and space era.
The Washington Wizards select JaVale McGee from the University of Nevada.
JaVale McGee's early days in the league were, let's just say, a mixed bag.
Oh, this is not a mistake. Do something with it. JaVale, throw it to a teammate.
The lob that he misses, boom.
There's a reason why he was the poster child of Shaqtin' a Fool. But enough of that. Let's talk about his crazy athleticism. I mean, nobody could deny my man's talent. From crazy dunks to swatting shots in the stands, McGee made sure he was going to give you something to remember. But for years in Washington, Denver, Philly, and Dallas, McGee had that reputation as a supremely talented athlete, but a meathead on the court. Well, that was until he went to Golden State. With the Warriors, JaVale redefined himself as a veteran presence who could be a key piece to a championship puzzle, grabbing 2 rings along the way. And soon after, he did the exact same thing as the starting center for the 2020 Lakers in the bubble, helping them win a chip. Nowadays, McGee is holding it down with the Sacramento Kings, still being a great backup center. But off the court, he's one of the drippiest players in the league. And he's actually been nominated for a Grammy. Crazy, right? He also has a new YouTube series called Ranked and Ready.
The Toronto Raptors select Roy Hibbert from Georgetown University.
Patrick Ewing, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo. That's the tradition that Roy Hibbert came from at Georgetown. He was bred to be a stout defensive center with a soft touch around the basket, and that's what he quickly became for the Pacers. With his towering 7'2" frame, he became a dominant force in the paint, especially defensively. Remember those Pacers Heat playoff battles I was talking about earlier? Yeah, Hibbert had nights where he gave LeBron, Wade, and Bosh some fits. Roy hit his peak with 2 All-Star appearances. Thanks to his ability to control the paint, he was a master of the verticality rule, making him one of the best defenders in the league. For a while, you kinda had to mention his name with top centers in the league. But then the game quickly evolved and Hibbert didn't. The league started shifting to a faster, more perimeter-oriented style, and Hibbert just couldn't keep up. After stints with the Lakers, Hornets, and Nuggets, Roy was out of the league just 2 years after his last All-Star appearance. Today, you can find Roy talking college hoops on CBS Sports. But I'll always wonder, what if Roy Hibbert was born 10 years earlier? His career is a classic case of a guy playing in the wrong era.
The Philadelphia 76ers select Maurice Spates from the University of Florida.
I don't think the Sixers really knew what they were getting when they drafted Maurice Spates 16th overall. As a young player, he showed a lot of promise as a skilled offensive four. Right out the gate, he proved he could hoop. But in 3 seasons in Philly, he didn't get much run, especially on a time that already had Elton Brand and Thaddeus Young at the position. He played valuable minutes for a season and a half with the Grit and Grind Grizzlies, and a half a season with the Dumpster Fire Cavs before signing with the Golden State Warriors in 2013. That's when Mo Buckets was born. A seamless fit with the Warriors style of play, Spates became a fan favorite and a top option off the bench. He won a title in 2015 and was a part of the 73-win team that blew a 3-1 lead to LeBron in the finals. Spates only played 2 more seasons in the NBA after that. He had a couple of decent years in China, and now he's an assistant coach at Georgia Southern. But I'm convinced that Mo Buckets could have gotten, well, Mo Buckets. In his pre-draft workouts, Spates showed the ability to shoot the 3, but he didn't really start taking it until he got to Golden State. I mean, what if he got drafted by a team and a coach that really let him use his entire bag? We may have met Mo Buckets a lot sooner.
The Phoenix Suns select Robin Lopez from Stanford University.
Known for his sideshow bob hairstyle and big personality, Robin Lopez has always been the definition of solid. In Phoenix, he was a reliable backup center for big men like Shaq, Amari Stoudemire, and Markieff Gortat. In limited minutes, he created his NBA identity. A smart big who could defend, score in the paint, and bring a spark of energy. But after leaving the Phoenix Suns, the Rolo show really began. Lopez began a stretch of 6 seasons averaging double figures as a starter for the Pelicans, Blazers, Knicks, and Bulls. During that 6-year stretch from 2012 to 2018, he put up nearly 11 points, 6.5 boards, and 1.4 blocks per game. Solid, right? I honestly don't know what's more entertaining, Robin's game or his beef with the NBA mascots.
He knows not to go near Lopez. Whoa, Robin!
Celebrating, but here's Lopez yet again.
Now, on the backside of his career, Rolo is in his 2nd stint with the Milwaukee Bucks, alongside his twin brother. His days as a starter are over, but his role as a fun-loving vet is important for the locker room, especially for a team trying to compete for a chip. Like I said, he's always been solid.
The Golden State Warriors select Anthony Randolph from Louisiana State University.
Back in the day, you couldn't tell me that Anthony Randolph wasn't going to be a star. He was a long, lanky, 6'10" combo forward who had so much upside. I mean, he had the body and athleticism to guard 1 through 4, and his bag on offense was expanding in his only year at LSU. The lefty could get to the rim at will, he had solid vision and playmaking ability, and had Defensive Player of the Year potential. At times, you see shades of Lamar Odom in him, but his rookie year with the Warriors left a lot to be desired. Some say it was his attitude, others say he clashed with Don Nelson. But after working his way out of the doghouse, Randolph put up decent numbers in his 2 seasons with Golden State. He showed flashes at his other NBA spots. I mean, in Minnesota, he put up nearly 12 points and 5 boards in only 20 minutes a game, but he never really caught on as a starter. After 2 seasons in Denver, he was out of the league by 2014. But his hoop dreams weren't over. Randolph became a star in Europe, playing in Russia and then in Spain. With Real Madrid, Randolph won 3 Liga ACB championships, 2 Spanish Cups, 5 Spanish Super Cups, and 2 EuroLeague titles before announcing his retirement in July of 2023. Still, I can't help but feel like Anthony Randolph could have been so much better in the NBA. What if he got drafted by the Phoenix Suns with Steve Nash, a point guard who could take advantage of his athleticism? Or what if he got a chance to be a primary ball handler and a scorer for a team like Milwaukee? Would he still be in the league now?
The Portland Trail Blazers select Brandon Rush from the University of Kansas.
At Kansas, Brandon Rush is what Dick Vitale used to call a PTP, a primetime player. A three-time first-team all-conference player, Rush with Mario Chalmers and Darrell Arthur led the Jayhawks to a Big 12 title and a natty with his sharpshooting and stout defense. He even locked up KD the previous season when Durant was at Texas. We all knew he would be a top pick, so it wasn't surprising when he got taken at 13 and traded to Indiana on draft night. What was surprising was that the college success didn't necessarily translate to the NBA. In Indiana, the offensive efficiency just wasn't there. He was shooting well from beyond the arc, but everywhere else, he couldn't really throw a rock in the ocean. So in 2011, the Pacers sent him to Golden State. He played pretty well as a sixth man for a bad Warriors team, but an ACL tear zapped him of his athleticism. And after his return from injury, he was relegated to bench duty and spot minutes for the rest of his career. After a season in Utah, he rejoined the Warriors for their title run in 2015 and the 73 win the season after. But Rush only played one more NBA season with the Wolves after that. He took his talents to Greece for a couple years and is now playing in the Big Three. But I honestly think that Rush came just a little too soon. I mean, obviously there's the injury, but check out the numbers. In his first 4 years, Rush was only shooting 46% from 2, but 41% from 3, and only taking 3.3 a game. I mean, he needed more volume from deep. If he got a chance to play during today's three-point evolution, think about the numbers he'd be putting up. What if he goes one spot lower to the Warriors? Is he the splash brother next to Steph Curry? With his defensive potential, it could have been possible.
The Sacramento Kings select Jason Thompson from Rider University.
Some people flash early, some show up late, and Jason Thompson was definitely a late bloomer. But when he developed, he became a grown man. He played 4 years at Rider University, averaging 20 points and 10 rebounds in his last 2 seasons. So the Kings thought they were drafting their center of the future when they took him at 12. He was big, mobile, and athletic, and had a versatile skill set and great timing as a shot blocker. And in his first couple seasons, he proved that he could bang down low with the best of them, putting up more than respectable numbers for a young player. But the Kings did what they always did back then. They stunted the growth of a young player by taking another center in the 2010 draft, and his name was DeMarcus Cousins. You see the issue here? Moving Thompson to power forward hindered his growth and exposed his weaknesses as the league was becoming more and more spacious. By the time he left the Kings in 2015, he never reached the heights of those first 2 seasons. Played with the Warriors and the Raptors in the 2015 through 2016 season, but had a minor bench role for both teams. Like many in his draft class, Thompson took the overseas route, playing in Turkey, Spain, and China, but walked away from basketball in 2022. Well, not really. He's an assistant coach at his alma mater, Rider University. The Kings might have gotten this pick right, but bad teams can't get out of their own way sometimes, and it probably ruined Thompson's career.
The Indiana Pacers select Jared Bayless from the University of Arizona.
Back in 08, you couldn't tell draft nerds that Jared Bayless wasn't the next Gilbert Arenas. They both came from Arizona, both were smaller combo guards, both were aggressive offensive players who could shoot from wherever and whenever, and both had a supreme confidence that just screamed special. He even won Summer League MVP, scoring nearly 30 points a game. So the hype was real and Bayless was going to be a star, but that's not really how that went for him. When he got to Portland, the minutes weren't there. The shot wasn't falling and he never got a chance to be the starter. The Blazers sent him to New Orleans, who flipped him to Toronto. And it was really with the Raptors where Bayless found his niche as a scoring punch and shooter off the bench. And that's really what he was for the rest of his career. From Memphis to Boston to Milwaukee, Philly, and Minnesota, Bayless was a solid backup guard who shot it well from deep, and that was good enough to play 12 seasons in the NBA. Outside of basketball, Bayless is an investor, real estate owner, and art collector. He's also a philanthropist. Through his foundation, the Bayless Foundation, he runs community programs that target general literacy, financial literacy, and computer literacy.
The New Jersey Nets select Brook Lopez from Stanford University.
No one in this draft has had quite a career like Brook Lopez. Coming out of Stanford, he had a much deeper bag than his brother, and it showed when he hit the league. By year 2, Brook was putting up 19 and 8. Granted, the Nets were historically trash, but Brook was still good. From 2010 to 2017, he averaged 19.7 points and 6.6 rebounds, becoming the Nets' all-time leading scorer in the process. That's right, Brook Lopez is the Nets' all-time leading scorer. And what's crazy is that he did it as a back-to-the-basket center. I definitely took advantage of that in 2K. I mean, you give me Brook in the paint and it was game time. Brook's post-game was nasty. He had soft hands and great footwork. Could use either hand to finish, and his fadeaway was almost unblockable because of his size and long arms. But then the league started to change, and unlike some other centers, Brook started to change too, which we definitely give him a lot of credit for. After a forgettable season in LA, Brook landed in Milwaukee for the 2018 through 2019 season. So did coach Mike Budenholzer, and he had some plans for the 7-footer. On offense, Bud asked Brook to take more threes in order to space the floor for Giannis. And on defense, the Bucks built a scheme that allowed Brook to play in drop coverage. And with Giannis as a help side defender, Brook became a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And to Bud's credit, all of this worked. The Bucks won a title, and Brook redefined himself as a stretch 5 and a rim protector, becoming one of the most valuable bigs in the league late in his career. I mean, just look at the threes he was taking.
That ball zip around the court. Lopez, bingo.
Making 7 threes, and look where he's shooting. I mean, that's Steph Curry.
9 points here so far for the Cavs. Brook gets a distance look at Splash Mountain.
You would have thought that he was doing this his whole career. I might even argue and say that, in terms of value, Brook Lopez has the most longevity in this draft class. What do you think? Let me know in the comments.
The Charlotte Bobcats select DJ Augustine from the University of Texas.
At Texas, DJ Augustine was a problem. His freshman year with Kevin Durant, he looked like a true point guard. But his sophomore year, he exploded onto the scene, averaging 19 points and 6 assists for the Longhorns, winning the Bob Cousy Award and becoming an All-American. So what's the issue? Well, he was 5'10", but that didn't stop the Charlotte Bobcats from taking him 9th overall. To them, he was the best player available. Never mind they already had a point guard in Raymond Felton, they wanted DJ Augustine. But honestly, real quick, Raymond Felton was a bucket.
Hand up, young pup. These defenders who need some milk.
But we could talk about that in a different video. DJ was a hooper and showed some promise as a shooter and scorer. And in 2010, he even got his chance to start for the Bobcats. But the efficiency just wasn't there. And because he was small, he could only do so much to compete on the defensive end. In the end, Augustine really found his way as a three-point shooter and one of the most reliable backup point guards in the league. Carving out a niche and finding a role doesn't make you a bust. And DJ Augustine fed his family from NBA money for 14 years.
The Milwaukee Bucks select Joe Alexander from West Virginia University.
I know a lot of y'all are saying, who? And I can't even lie, even I had to remember who Joe Alexander was. Once I did, it still didn't click. At West Virginia, Joe Alexander was a crazy athletic forward who could finish around the rim and bang down low if he needed to. And he had loads of potential. They called him the most athletic player in the draft. The comparisons out of college were Sean Marion, the Matrix. But Joe wasn't Neo. He wasn't the one. He played spot minutes for the Bucks in his rookie season, putting up pedestrian numbers in 59 games. And Milwaukee pulled the plug before the start of year 2, demoting Joe to the D-League and declining his third-year option. Then they traded him to Chicago, where he only played in 8 games before he was traded again and waived. He had a really nice comeback year in the G League for the Texas Legends in the 2010 through 2011 season, but since then, he's been all over the place. He's had another stop in the G League, played in Russia, Italy, Turkey, France, Korea, but mostly Israel, where he's still playing today. In Israel, Joe found his footing, winning 3 Israeli Cups and even making the All-Israeli League first team in 2018. But Joe partially blames his status as a bust on the Bucks, and you really can't argue with his logic. He said, quote, "I was touted as a project and someone with a lot of potential who could contribute had I learned to play the game. That's what the Bucks told me. I needed time," end quote. And that's something the Bucks didn't give him. They cut ties with a guy they knew would be a project after the first year, and that probably made him look a little toxic to other teams around the league. Joe needed a team that had patience and vets that could teach him to play the game the right way. But that's not always how it goes.
The LA Clippers select Eric Gordon from Indiana University.
We knew Eric Gordon was the truth in high school. In a nationally televised game on ESPN, he earned the nickname Air Gordon after dropping 43 on Jeffrey and Marcus Jordan while their dad was watching. Imagine your dad being the GOAT and he watched someone drop 43 on your head in front of the whole country. Anyway, Gordon was destined to be a great scorer in the league, and that's what he's been from day one. But he was never quite a star. I mean, he could put up good numbers on bad teams. In only his 3rd season, he averaged 22 a game, but he was never going to be the main guy. He was a good, but not great starting 2 guard with the Clippers and the Pelicans, but he really proved he could contribute to winning with the Rockets. D'Antoni brought him off the bench, and that's exactly what Gordon needed, an opportunity to run as the guy. And when Harden was in the game, he could be a great spot-up shooter. He won 6th Man of the Year in 2017, and he's been a problem off the bench since. Now, he's with the Phoenix Suns, and even late in his career, he's capable of giving you buckets on any given night.
The New York Knicks select Danilo Gallinari.
In Italy, Danilo Gallinari was him. Before he even sniffed the league at 18, he was playing for Olimpia Milano and was named the league's best player under 22. 2 years later, he was the Italian League MVP and EuroLeague's rising star. So when the Knicks drafted Danilo Gallinari, of course the fans booed him. But in a way, they got exactly what they expected. The word on Gallo was that he was a long forward who had guard skills and a nice offensive repertoire. in the same mold as Hedo Turkoglu or Tony Kukoc or Detlef Schrempf, and that's exactly what he's been. From the jump, Gallo has been a good scorer and a great shooter, and up until his ACL injury in 2022, Gallo was still a high-performing offensive weapon. For his career, he's averaging 15 and 5 a game, shooting 38% from deep. Now he's filling out the roster in Detroit, but I have a feeling that Gallo will find his way back to a contender soon.
The Memphis Grizzlies select Kevin Love from UCLA.
Before he became that savvy vet we know today with the Miami Heat, Kevin Love was really that guy in Minnesota. At UCLA, Kevin Love showed an incredible mix of physicality and finesse. He was a mature player with an incredible basketball IQ and a great low-post game. So it wasn't all that shocking that the Timberwolves were salivating to get their hands on the power forward who drew comparisons to his godfather, Hall of Famer Wes Unseld. Before he lost all that weight, Kevin Love was the best rebounder in basketball. Even undersized at 6'8", he was crashing the boards better than anyone. He averaged double-digit boards in 5 of his first 6 games, and led the league in rebounding in 2011. He was quick on the block and could turn over either shoulder. He was a great passer, a good roll man, and could step out and hit the 3. He was the complete package, a 25 and 12 guy. But with all the individual success, he still hadn't played in a playoff series. And then LeBron came calling. In Cleveland, Love had to fit out, or fit in to fit out. Nobody really knows what LeBron was talking about, but K-Love had to adapt his game for the greater good. He went from being the main guy in Minnesota to the third piece of a championship puzzle. The Cleveland years were hard, but they brought out a different K-Love. His ability to stretch the floor, his clutch shooting, and his willingness to get gritty were vital in the Cavs' 2016 title run. If you need any more proof of Love's championship pedigree, just watch the play where he locks up Steph.
It's the 3, steps back, crossover, puts up a 3.
Nowadays, he's coming off the bench for the Heat, and it may seem like we're worlds away from his days in Minnesota, but it's really a testament to Love's evolution. He embraced being a mentor, a leader, and he can still be dangerous some nights. Just ask Milwaukee.
Right foot dribble hand off to catch the big man sleeping.
Love teed up, cross court, it's Love, 3 crowded.
Ultimately, with 5 All-Star appearances and a chip, I think he has a case to make the Hall of Fame. What about you?
The Seattle Supersonics select Russell Westbrook from UCLA.
Before he was a top 75 player, or an MVP, or the triple-double king, or one of the most explosive guards the NBA has ever seen, Russell Westbrook was a tweener out of UCLA who scouts weren't quite sold on. Despite having point guard size, he never really played the position before, and at best, most scouts thought he'd be like Monte Ellis. And wow, they were wrong. In OKC, Russ quickly shattered any pre-draft misconceptions. Alongside Kevin Durant, Westbrook helped propel the Thunder to elite status and quickly. By year 3, Russ was an all-star and an all-NBA player. By year 4, the Thunder were in the finals, losing to the Heat in 5. Westbrook's energy and ferocity was seemingly the perfect complement to KD's composed dominance. But KD didn't see it that way. After Durant left, Russ became the Russ we know and sometimes love. It was his team and he made triple-doubles look easy. I know triple-doubles don't seem like much anymore, but Russ did something no one had done since Oscar Robertson. And that style of play made him a legend. Now, granted, that style of play is also the reason why it didn't really work out in Houston or Washington. And it definitely didn't work out with the Lakers, which in my opinion was a crazy trade for them to make knowing the type of players LeBron needs to win. But with the Clippers, we're seeing a different Russ, a more mature Russ. When Harden got to LA this season, it was Russ who volunteered to go to the bench, showing that he was willing to be selfless to win a chip. And that's a lot to ask from a guy who's probably the best player in this draft class. A player who revolutionized the point guard position. I mean, really think about it. An MVP, 9-time All-Star, 9-time All-NBA performer, and a top 75 player ever. Who's better than him in this class? I don't think I can name anybody, but I know for sure it is not the next player on this list.
The Minnesota Timberwolves select O.J. Mayo from the University of Southern California.
The hype was real with O.J. Mayo. He started playing varsity basketball in 7th grade, averaging 23 as a 13-year-old. So by the time he got to USC, the basketball world knew who O.J. Mayo was. A dynamic scoring guard, he could do it all on the offensive side of the ball and had the tools to be a great defender. He had all the makings to be like a present-day Anthony Edwards. So what happened? Short answer is that O.J. Mayo couldn't get out of his own way. It was said he was immature on and off the court, and despite being a more than capable scorer, Memphis didn't find him in the plans for the future, past his rookie deal. He played well for the Mavericks and was decent on the Bucks before he was banned from the league for violating the anti-drug policy. Since then, Mayo has hooped in Germany, Taiwan, China, Russia, and most recently, Egypt and Saudi Arabia. But Mayo's story is always sad, because there really was no reason why his talent couldn't have blossomed in the league. He had the handle, the shot, and the playmaking ability to be special, and it's a shame we didn't get to see it.
The Miami Heat select Michael Beasley from Kansas State University.
If you watched college basketball in 2008, you knew Michael Beasley was a bucket. And if you were from the DMV, you definitely knew who B-Easy was. At Kansas State, as a freshman, Beasley was the most dominant player in the country with 26 points and 12 boards a night. And he was a generational talent as a scorer. He was a lefty who could score with either hand and shoot from all over the court. He was also a good athlete who would use his physical tools to get to the rim. And he was money from mid-range. Miami thought they were getting the next Carmelo Anthony to pair next to a prime Dwayne Wade. And while B-Easy was a great scorer, he couldn't really do much else. He was pretty oblivious on defense, and off the ball, well, yeah. And with D-Wade getting most of the touches, he didn't really have much of a chance to initiate the offense. Don't get me wrong, he was solid for the Heat, but the minute they got Bosh and LeBron, Beasley was shipped to Minnesota. With the Timberwolves, Beasley dropped 19 a game on decent efficiency, but the numbers were empty calories on a terrible team. Beasley bounced around the league for a while, and he could always be counted on for a bucket off the bench, but he never caught on. The main reason was a lack of awareness on both ends of the court, but that never stopped him from scoring. Most recently, Beasley has played in China and in the Big Three, where he's the co-captain of Three's company. But don't get it twisted, Be-Easy can still give your favorite player fits. And apparently, he was even beating LeBron one-on-one in practice.
The Chicago Bulls select Derrick Rose from the University of Memphis.
D. Rose's entrance into the league was perfect. Drafted by his hometown team to save a franchise that he grew up watching win championships. Chicago had a homegrown superstar who knew what it meant to put on a Bulls jersey, and he brought the city just as much hope as another Chicagoan would later that year. And he didn't just meet the expectations, he shattered them. His never-before-seen athleticism, fearless drives to the cup, and clutch performances quickly turned him into one of the best players in the league. In year 1, he was already redefining the point guard position, winning Rookie of the Year. Year 2, he made the All-Star game. And year 3, he did the unthinkable. He was named the league's MVP at only 22 years old, the youngest in league history. With D. Rose at the helm, the Bulls were a contender, and it started to feel like the glory days of the 90s. But the highs were matched by the lows. And during the 2012 playoffs, Rose tore his ACL. This injury triggered a string of injuries that kept him out for extensive time. Following years were full of surgeries, recoveries, and attempts to return to form. And that explosiveness he was once known for was kinda gone. Despite the setbacks, D. Rose was able to rebuild himself into a reliable scorer off the bench. He transformed his game, relying more on his skill, experience, and basketball IQ. I mean, who could forget the 50-point game with the Timberwolves? Even with all the injuries, Rose is still in the league as a veteran leader for the Memphis Grizzlies. And that's really a testament to talent and spirit. But he still is and may be one of the biggest what-ifs in NBA history. The injuries robbed us of seeing how great he could have been. And then I always think of this question: will Derrick Rose be the only MVP to not make the Hall of Fame? You really can't deny the impact of the 2008 draft. To me, I think it represented an important shift in the NBA. Players like D. Rose and Russ redefined the point guard spot and carved the way for explosive scoring guards we see today. And we started to see the evolution of big men from guys like Kevin Love, Ryan Anderson, and Brook Lopez. I mean, look at a guy like Roy Hibbert. He flashed and made a name for himself, and then poof, gone, never to be seen again. But that's not the same for all the players in this draft. Some did adapt to the game, but got kicked out for other reasons, like OJ Mayo. I mean, what ended up happening to him? I know we briefly covered it in this video, but there's actually a lot more to the story on how he got blacklisted, and how many other players did in this video showing right here.